Hey everyone, it's Roie from SmeshCast. This video is brought to you directly from our weekly SmeshCast podcast, which you can find in the description box below. Thank you all so much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, and let's get right into the video. But we'll see how that goes. I mean, I don't like the small cage for Izzy at all. That it was just announced a few days ago. Ariel Helwani of ESPN broke the news that they are indeed planning on doing Izzy Costa in the UFC Apex in the 25-foot cage, not the 30-foot cage.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, when you look at what the real strength of Costa is, what does he do? He comes in, guns blazing, but he doesn't do his striking in the middle of the octagon at all. He really doesn't like to strike in the middle. He likes to push you against the fence and then wait on you.
Right.
And that's playing right into his game plan. Izzy likes to stand, pick you apart on the outside, use his movement, circle you out. The more space he has to do that, the further away the cage is, the more it plays into Izzy's favor.
Yeah, Izzy has great takedown defense, but Paulo Costa, I doubt he's going to take him down.
Not going to try. Why would he?
Right, so it'll definitely play towards Costa's favor. At the same time, obviously, Izzy's one of the best counter strikers in the game, and I could foresee some sort of Stipe Miocic where Doom, like moving backwards.
Left. Yes, that was beautiful.
But no, I agree that it definitely plays towards Costa's favor.
I definitely see it going either Costa catches and literally knocks Adesanya's head off, just fucking obliterates him like Ngannou Overeem style. I can see him knocking him out like Overeem. Or like Luke Rockhold getting knocked against Romero. I can see that as well. One of those that's like puts him on his ass, and then when he's on his ass, just unloads a huge shot and just destroys his career.
Right.
On the other hand, obviously Adesanya, as we said, is a fantastic striker. The other thing I was thinking about, Adesanya is a kickboxer, right? Adesanya is used to fighting in a ring, not a cage. Adesanya is used to fighting in a very small enclosed space with right angle corners, right? Not an octagon where you have it's basically a circle. It's way easier to circle out in an octagon than it is when you're trapped in the corner of a boxing ring or a kickboxing ring. Mm-hmm. So Adesanya, and of course, kickboxing, he's used to these guys with these big, heavy, wailing punches. It does help him a lot that he can still, he's used to it. This is not new territory. It is really interesting to hear the two sides of the commentary. I hear some guys like the Weasel, who was always saying from the beginning that he thinks Costa, not that he's not good, but he's just the best matchup possible for Adesanya. It's just that it plays it perfectly into Adesanya's style of just like pure technicality beats brawn every time. Mm-hmm. Other guys like Luke Thomas who are saying, yeah, this is Izzy knows what he's doing here, but Costa's no slouch, and this can very, very well be Izzy's toughest test, and he thinks it is Izzy's toughest test.
Yeah, for sure.
Like a Romero that can move.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. What Costa is.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I thought Whitaker was his toughest test. Unfortunately, Whitaker didn't really show up for that fight, and he said that in interviews, whether people believe that or not. But this, by far, I'd say is his toughest opponent, or somebody that will cause him the most amount of problems.
I'm curious if Adesanya goes and tries to out-jab him, out-kick him, just really take him apart from the outside, or if he goes into the fire and trades in the pocket with him. I'm really curious. I think that one of the things that I think is going to play into Adesanya's favor is that Costa doesn't throw straight shots ever. Mm-hmm. You don't see Costa going 1-2. You see him going 1-2.
Yes.
So Adesanya, we all know straight punches beat looping punches every time. That's one of the Weasel. I don't know if you watch the Weasel on YouTube. It's one of my favorite breakdown YouTube guys that I watch. He talks about it all the time. A straight punch will beat a looping punch every time. You're going to both, first of all, you have sometimes your shoulder to protect you, whereas when you're open up, you're wide open. But also it's just faster. You're traveling a much shorter distance than if you're going all the way around here. And you're just going to touch him first and put him out. I can see him doing that. It almost reminds me, actually, now that I think about it, could be a what's it called? A Rose versus Andrade kind of fight. Mm-hmm. With Rose really doing that crazy footwork, just punching her out from the outside, blooding her up, marking up that face. And then eventually Andrade comes in. And the question is, do they come in and knock him out?
Yeah, that's a good comparison.
There's that real brooding, heavy style against that light, flashy, just beautiful kind of style.
Mm-hmm.
That was interesting. And also we have, DC and Stipe is also in that small cage.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes right into DC's favor. He wants to Russell. And that's going to help him when he gets that cage. So I'm actually kind of curious because DC has been saying all fight camp, hey, Stipe, you better bring your wrestling shoes. Stipe, I'm going to wrestle you. Is he playing a little bit of is he playing some mind games? Is he tricking him?
I don't know. I don't think DC is the type of guy to mess around like that. I think that
he is. DC messes around. That DC, ever since that Brock Lesnar, DC has changed. He likes to promote his fights.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But at the end of the day, he's one of the best wrestlers next to Khabib in the UFC, and if he says he's going to wrestle, I assume he's going to wrestle.
I think a part of it, he could be trying to put that into Stipe's head because everyone knows your striking gets 20 times better when you have that wrestling threat as well. That's how Khabib dropped Conor. By threatening that takedown, Conor's hands dropped and comes over the top. Right, I wouldn't be shocked if he's trying to goad Stipe into that kind of a reaction, but I also think he's going to wrestle anyway. I think it's a bit of both. I think he's going to use his wrestling because of course he has to win, but also just putting it in Stipe's head that he's using the wrestling to also help the striking a little bit.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think it's a bit of both. And that small cage, Stipe was working hard. Stipe was trying to get that big cage in there, and they told him to go fuck himself. Basically, they said no. I don't know. Do you think, like, some guys are like, look, if you're a champion, you should be able to beat any fighter anytime. And they say, hey, look at other sports. You have football, which half the time you're playing in the rain. Sometimes you're playing in the sun, in the nice, beautiful weather. Sometimes it's hot as shit. Sometimes you're in the snow. Sometimes it's slippery. Whatever, and everyone has to deal with that with those same conditions. And some teams are better at throwing, and so certain conditions are better for them. And other teams are better at running, and certain conditions are better for them. Do you think it's kind of one of those things where it's just like, hey, you should be able to fight wherever it is, whenever it is? Or do you think that these big title fights should be a little bit more standard of I'm the champion of the world in a 30-foot octagon with a weigh-in at exactly this thing, 18 or whatever, 30 hours beforehand, all of that whole list of whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. I see both sides. Like, I could see the idea that if you're the champion of the world, you should be able to beat anybody anytime. But I also see how, you want certain things to happen in your favor. It kind of reminds me of Till once said in an interview that, like, he doesn't want to face the best version of his opponent. He wants to face an opponent that's, like, had a terrible weight cut, injuries come in, just so he can, beat him easily. But I see both sides, but at the end of the day, this fight, when was their last fight? It was like almost a year ago, yeah?
Yeah, it was last August. I think it was exactly a year ago. But not even just specifically for this fight. I'm saying in general, do you think title fights, do you think it's fair for title fights? Because it can go in, we see it go in either favor. In this case, the cage is going and actually in both cases, it's actually going to the challenger's favor, not the champion. Mm-hmm. But it could sometimes be in the champion's favor as well.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. I guess because this is, a championship fight, and pretty much any championship fight that's occurred in the history of the UFC has been in a 30-foot cage. It probably makes sense to do it in a 30-foot cage, but these are the situations we're dealing with now during COVID and stuff like that, so make do with what you can.
Yeah, I agree on some level. I do think that it would be better I think they should just have it as a standard cage, because it's just like, what if we suddenly made one title fight 3 rounds just because the TV deal only ran until midnight or whatever? Mm-hmm. Well, then that's not a championship fight anymore. It's just like, to me, like, if you change the overall parameters of having that 30-foot octagon is a big difference from a 25-foot octagon, especially in these two scenarios where these guys have very opposite styles, and that smaller cage really, really favors one style over the other. Mm-hmm. If you had other fighters, depending on who it is, it really wouldn't matter. If you have, again, like Jeremy Stevens against Calvin Kattar, that wouldn't have changed that fight because no one's running around, no one's being chased.
Right.
But if you have Darren Till against Robert Whittaker, if you have Adesanya Costa, if you have these guys who are a lot more mobile and rely on that movement, it changes the fight, and I don't like it. It kind of puts an asterisk on everything. And yeah, maybe they'll win anyway. But I don't know. I like it being standard because I don't like there having any sort of asterisk on anything, because then there's always, whatever the result is always somewhat in question. Is, oh, but what if it was in 30 feet?
Yeah, for sure.
What would Costa have beaten him?
Mm-hmm.
And then whose fault is it? Maybe. And I also don't want to see guys starting to decide on whether or when they're going to fight or where they're going to fight based on what the conditions are in that region.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to see Izzy saying, I'm not fighting in September because I hear that's going to be an Apex card.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to wait until October. And then Costa says, I'm only going to fight if it's the Apex card. And now you start seeing these negotiations go bad. They can fit it in, too. The reason that they had a smaller cage in the Apex earlier was so that they could have all the seating and everything. But now they don't need to. They have a lot more space. They can fit a 30-foot in there. And they have to change some lighting stuff. But if you're putting on they're putting on 9 events in August alone, plus they're doing September in the Apex, they're going to have some 15 events easily over the next 2 months. Why would you not do it?
Yeah, no,
it makes sense.
I remember they said that their main issue was the lighting, but like, this is a $4 billion company. Like,
I mean,
it can't be that much of an issue just to put in a 30-foot cage and change the lighting.
You're putting on at least 2 pay-per-view cards, and they're 2 of the biggest pay-per-views of all time. I mean, maybe I don't know about Izzy Costa, but when you're talking about the significance of DC and Stipe, that's one of the biggest heavyweight fights ever, or if not the biggest heavyweight fight ever. And you're going to just put that on and say, oh, I don't want to deal and buy new lighting, so put on a smaller cage. It's stupid to me.